Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. I want to add something to yesterday's briefing about big bucket mouth Michelle Obama. The problem that she sees is that people are not happy with the status quo, and that people are looking for alternatives to the Democratic Party. Actually, they're looking for alternatives to the disappointment from the Democratic Party. And that being the case as far as she's concerned, well, they just need to suck it up. And there's no reason for them, and she made it very explicitly clear that by them she meant men, because she did specify later on, when she was talking about people whose rage wasn't happening in a vacuum. Later on in her little diatribe, she specified that it was the men who needed to look into the women's eyes and explain how their rage was going to be hurting these women and propping up these regimes. That stupidity she was talking about, it means nothing. She and Barack Obama have a home in Martha's Vineyard. They've got huge white corporations paying all their bills, all these speaking engagements. They're living the good life and then some. So from their ivory towers, there's nothing to complain about as far as they see it. Life's never been better for them. So all you people out there who are unhappy with what the Democrats are doing, you're unhappy about the economy, you're unhappy about being ignored on basic policy, well, here's some abortion. That's apparently the answer. That's all they're talking about. That's Kamala Harris's big issue too. It's abortion, abortion, abortion. Apparently people don't care about money, they care about whether or not they can get rid of an unwanted pregnancy. The political strategy at work here of pushing abortion isn't meant to benefit black women, no matter what Michelle Obama may try to tell you. It's white women in the suburbs who are the true audience for this message. That's why even though white women are the weak link in the Democrats' would-be voter coalition, you're not going to be seeing Barack Obama or anybody else in the Democrats wagging their finger at those white female voters. They're not going to be saying that at all. Not merely because of this election, but because they have long-term plans where these white female voters are concerned. This is what Rahm Emanuel was talking about as those Biden Republicans. And I explained to you that the Democrats are still trying to put together a new political coalition, but one that is not going to be vulnerable to the political demands of black people, which includes black women too, by the way. It's a very fine line that they're attempting to tap dance on. On the one hand, they clearly don't want black people, including black women, to be involved in any sort of political direction for the country. They don't want any sort of undue influence from the black folks. But by the same token, especially with margins this close, they still need black voter support. So they're giving lip service to what appears to be something that's going to benefit black women, but when you look at it, what are they offering black women? Abortions. That's it. How insulting. Now, for all the black women listening to me, when's the last time in the last 10 years that you've even thought about an abortion? Now, when's the last time in the last 4 years or the last 4 months when you've had trouble paying your bills or wondered when the price of groceries would stop going up? If you're trying to get a house and you can't find any, or you can't find any that are reasonably priced, then how is abortion going to help you with that? If you're renting and you keep seeing the rent going up and up to the point that you can't afford it, how is abortion going to help you with that, especially when you consider the fact that people can't save up money for a down payment on a home precisely because all of the rent's out of control, and that's being allowed. And this is the reason why Michelle Obama wasn't ranting and raving about the economy. There's nothing good to say about it. She had to start off her little speech with that. Oh, we know people are unhappy with the pace of progress. No, there's no progress at all. That's the problem. See, neither Kamala Harris nor any of the rest of the Democrats are talking about the economy because they're not trying to do anything about it. But then again, why would they? As I detail for you, the president of Blackstone, the country's largest landlord who's buying up entire neighborhoods, this guy gave Kamala Harris hundreds of thousands of dollars back in July. And BlackRock, another of America's big landlords, they had one of their senior executives acting as a campaign advisor to Kamala Harris, telling her what the huge corporate landlords want her to do about housing. Spoiler, they didn't say anything about lowering prices and nothing about more inventory either. It's Obama all over again. Barack Obama shamelessly ignored Main Street and decided to bail out Wall Street back in 2008 because his entire agenda from the very beginning was about serving those white corporate interests, which he did, and as we see, they've paid the Obamas back handsomely with enormous amounts of cash once they got out of office, because that's how bribes are done in America. But for Michelle Obama to stand in front of the very people who are angry about the fact that they can't make ends meet and furious with the fact that they're being ignored generation after generation, but being told by these privileged bootlicking punks that you need to go ahead and vote for them regardless, she doesn't understand, not because she can't comprehend it, but because part of the contempt is the point. That's the entire point, showing the contempt. First of all, Michelle Obama has no respect for black folks in general, and certainly no respect for black men at all. Not even the half-black man that she's with, who truth be told Barack Obama is only half a man. She even publicly said that she didn't like Barack Obama for 10 years of their marriage because she didn't feel like he was doing enough for the child rearing. 10 years that she said she didn't like this guy? 10 years? Why the hell did she stay with him for 10 years though if she couldn't stand him? Well, she did it for the same reason Hillary Clinton stayed with Bill even though he was a notorious womanizer and had been caught a number of times humiliating her in the process. So why stay with somebody who you really don't like for all those years and make sure you put on a pasted-on pretty smile for it? Because Michelle Obama, just like Hillary, could see that Barack Obama was being groomed for higher office by the DNC. These scumbags like Michelle Obama, they don't have marriages. They have arrangements. They remind me of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. Notice the pattern? Barack Obama is embarrassed and emasculated by his wife publicly, and yet rather than even try to be the man of the house, instead he submits to her and runs around finger-wagging and lecturing black men instead, attacking black men because he's too terrified to be the man of his own house. I think next we'll be seeing Barack Obama slap somebody at a DNC convention. I think before it's all over, we're going to find out that Michelle has probably had a couple of entanglements or something. Have you ever heard her express her appreciation or gratitude for Barack Obama for having made her a somebody? Because if it wasn't for him, she would still be some anonymous drone answering phones at a law office somewhere. He was the one who raised her out of the muck of mediocrity into being a somebody. And she hasn't once said that she was grateful to him for everything he's done for her. She just thinks it was all her own doing, I guess. The same way she doesn't thank black voters for everything that we've done for them. Instead, the Obamas do nothing but give insults and condescension. Both of those two clowns should be kissing the black community's feet nonstop, but then again, they didn't get to their position by kissing black people's feet. They got to their position by giving black people the middle finger and then being able to show we can insult these dumb Negroes and all we have to do is say, well, you want to see some black folks in the White House, don't you? So you better go vote for us. They proved on 2 separate occasions that they could pull that hat trick. And yeah, they failed the 3rd time, but as far as they're concerned, if there's enough pressure, if there's an undesirable enough candidate on the ballot, maybe they can pull it off for a three-peat. However, Michelle Obama's disrespectful behavior in public is only a reflection of what she's been doing privately to her husband. And this also goes for black women, by the way. While the shea butter bootlicks may get some giggles out of Michelle Obama wagging her finger at black men, the reality is she did not say one word about what black women were going to get. All she did was paint a gory but largely false picture of what life for some women might be without abortion. Well, here's the real story. Only a small handful of women might die from lack of abortions. Meanwhile, black women in America are dying constantly, and it's documented, dying from maternal mortality. These hospitals, who can successfully treat and care for non-black mothers, mysteriously lose all of their medical skill as soon as a black mother comes in the door. And these black women either die at the hospital or, more routinely, they die a few days later from complications. And it happens consistently, and the hospitals all constantly claim that they have no idea why. Oh, it's such a mystery. See, those are the stories of black women who are dying before our very eyes who need to be talked about. But bucket-mouthed Michelle Obama didn't say a word because she doesn't care. I've been talking about the maternal mortality rate when nobody else has, and the black infant mortality rate right along with it. You want to know why? It may not be sexy, but it's a subject that you need to know about. You need somebody to remind you about this. It's necessary that we talk about it. Because while you have these bought and paid for Negroes trying to scare you with phony made-up stories about women who might die from not getting an abortion, the reality is nobody's saying a peep about the black women who are actually dying. Not made-up stories, not hypotheticals, not something that could happen to a few women in the distant future, but the deaths of black women that are going on right now as we speak, real deaths, because they were simply trying to give birth to a black child. Well, I'll talk about it. Though tragically, those videos that I've done dealing with the maternal mortality rate and the infant mortality rates, they tend to get some of my lowest views. And that's a tragedy in and of itself. Now, I don't know if that's YouTube's algorithm or not. I'd like to believe that that's the issue. But if it's not, then that's a problem. Because we already know that these black bootleg bootlicks don't give a rip about black people. So we have to. We better care. That's why I was so furious about what happened to our brother Ogun Spirit and his family. His infant son died at a hospital under these same mysterious circumstances. And while we all know that these hospitals lie, the reality is neither political party has put any sort of legislation or regulatory system in place that would make it where these killings can be addressed. Abortion or no abortion, the maternal mortality and infant mortality rates are something that both of the major parties should be looking at if they were actually telling the truth. If the white right was actually genuine about the so-called culture of life they want to cultivate, then this would be the place to start. And if the white left were simply concerned about making sure that women have a choice, what about those who choose to have children? You're going to go ahead and make sure they get protected? No, a woman's life only matters if they can uphold the principle of killing a baby, especially a black one. There's no laws that are being put on the books or even being proposed to get tough on these medical murder centers because this is the system working exactly the way it's supposed to. Non-black mothers are treated by the healthcare system, but black mothers are subjected to a death care system. Our problem is we don't care about these things as a black community until these evil scumbags harm somebody that we love. We ignore it. We don't want to see videos about it because it's not something that matters to us. And it's our refusal to focus on it that keeps giving the enemy room to kill us with impunity. This has to change. On a side note, I got a laugh out of bucket mouth griping that women are not baby-making vessels. Gee, the only thing that she was talking about during her entire tirade was women's uteruses and wombs. In fact, it's the only thing that Kamala Harris talks about at her rallies up there on the big boards. Reproductive freedom. Okay, in that case then, how about the freedom to have your baby? Ooh, we didn't mean freedom like that. So that's what they focus on. Abortion, getting pregnant, terminating the pregnancies. We want to talk about other things that are of much more concern to women. You talk to women today and ask them what's the number one issue in their lives. None of them is going to say abortion. They're all going to be talking about their money, as they should. It's the feminists who keep obsessing over women only as it relates to babies. Do you see the scam? They accuse you of what they do. There's not a lot of difference between either of the major parties. We've said this for decades, but you got people like the boomers who constantly pretended like there was some difference. We can't vote for so-and-so's because he's crazy. We got to vote for the Democrats because they ain't crazy. Well, don't look now. But Kamala Harris is being endorsed by Dick Cheney's daughter, by Cheney himself, and now most recently by W's daughter. So while you and I are ignored by Kamala Harris, she's giddily palling around with the same right-wing nuts that she and Obama were pretending to excoriate 10 years ago. All you fools who claimed that Bush was so dangerous 20 plus years ago and how the Republicans were psychos, please explain why Kamala Harris is so eager and happy to get their support. How many people died because of George W. Bush? I'm talking about black people in the U.S., by the way. I'm not even talking about the foreigners overseas. The Bush administration was one of the worst butchers in U.S. history, but you wouldn't know it by how Kamala and the Democrats are acting. Now, what does that tell you? Is it about their so-called principles, or is it merely about who's going to be in power, who's going to be holding the whip for the next 4 years? These political alliances and these political cabals, they're completely and thoroughly fluid. They'll change depending on whatever's politically expedient to them in the moment. Meanwhile, they tell you and me that the anti-black embargo that they've got as far as legislation and resources goes, well, that doesn't change no matter who's in the White House. All of you slow, mushy-headed dimwits who drank the Kool-Aid and went along with the fraud of the two parties allegedly competing against each other, you look real dumb now. I want you guys to start saying something. You owe it to the black community to rear your stupid heads now and speak up. You're the enemy within. And you're remaining in hiding for the same reason that you remained totally quiet for the last 3.5 years, as the black media reminded everyone how Biden broke all of his weak, phony promises to us, and then how nothing has changed for us on his watch. Except for the very things that he claimed Trump would do, that's what Biden and Kamala Harris have been doing. And you want to know why it is that people are not in the streets and people are not revolting right now? It's for the same reason that they didn't do it after Barack Obama took office. Having these clowns getting in here, especially after some social upheaval or other, that's meant to be a form of hitting the political reset button. And that's what happened with Joe Biden. Oh, we're going to pretend as if we're dealing with all the evil that the Orange Man did, never mind the fact that he was simply continuing what Barack Obama had done. They don't tell you about the continuity. They don't point out to you that this stuff spans both political parties. And as a result, people get confused. In their minds, they're hitting the political snooze button and going back to sleep. And don't worry about the fact that the police killings of black folks are higher now than they were under Trump. What matters is that Merrick Garland and the boys, they're going to do, well, something. The shills and agents, they didn't dare say anything until this summer, when the old codger finally woke up from his coma and began stumbling for re-election. What's going on here is a hell of a lot larger than one election. This is not about sending a particular message for a particular candidate. This is about a political realignment that has been long overdue for the black electorate. We are supposed to be using our ballot as a sword and a shield. It's supposed to be weaponizing the vote, weaponizing it for our own personal benefit, no one else's. This is not about whether or not we're going to be sending a message. You want to send a message, call Western Union. This is about making sure that we get the leverage that we are due so that we can get the resources and tangibles that we are owed. Even if slavery had never happened, we would still be owed a huge share of America's resources because that's what citizenship is. When you got a situation where it's okay to have the bigwigs getting everything while everybody else is left out, that lets you know you don't live in a democracy. A democracy would never allow for that. A democracy is supposed to be the rule of the people, but instead it's the rule of the elite. That's an oligopoly. And Barack and Michelle Obama are proud denizens of that particular strata. They see themselves as having escaped blackness. That's how they see it. We made it out. We're not black. This is like the French Revolution, and you got Michelle Obama, or should I say Michelle Antoinette, telling all of these poor broke folks, let them eat cake, even if they can't afford it. This strategy of abuse and harassment and haranguing and insulting, that's what they're doing across the board with everyone. Sure, they may single out black men by name, but when you look at how they're treating everybody else, they just do the exact same thing, the same policy of malign neglect, only without the insults and without the condescension. What else do you call it when you got these individuals sitting here saying that all of these angry men, they need to vote regardless? Well, don't you think you ought to be telling these men what they're going to get and that should be the only thing you say? No. We got to tell them there's something wrong with them. And then when you ask, well, what are the women going to be getting? They're going to be getting abortions. Well, they don't need abortions. That's not the number one issue. Well, anything else is not important. What's important is abortion. It's the exact same thing. They just do all of their ignoring of these constituencies that they claim to care for so much. They just do that without the insults. But a lot of people don't pick up on it. Same way they haven't picked up on the fact that Kamala Harris is resorting to star power in order to get people to attend her rallies. Trump, on the other hand, he's using anger in order to fill the stands. This isn't a campaign for him, it's a revenge tour. He has no real policies to speak of. Then again, he didn't have any back in 2016 either. And his slogan this time around isn't Make America Great. Now it's payback time. For the Obamas, this is about, they think, erasing or at least greatly blurring the humiliation of Trump having beaten their hand-picked successor back in 2016. The Obamas desperately want to be able to point and say, see, we repudiated the orange man. There's no pandemic this time around. And the economy is in the toilet. But people are rejecting the guy who said that Barack Obama wasn't born in the U.S. See, we're getting things back to normal. And what is politically normal? It's the people getting back on the political treadmill, voting like mindless lemmings, and not even bothering to care about the fact that they're not getting anything for their votes. See, we successfully dissipated all of that revolutionary energy, just like we did back in 2008. That's what this all represents to Michelle Obama and Barack and the rest of the Democrat establishment. For them, it would be a great thing even if there's a razor-thin margin of victory for Kamala Harris, if they can feel as if, see, we got out there, we spat in the faces of these malcontents, and we still managed to eke out a victory by appealing to these white suburban women. See, we got away with it. That's the way that they're going to be trying to portray it if Kamala Harris wins. But regardless, I don't want any of us getting hung up on that. What we've embarked upon is a permanent political posture, not one that's merely in place for a particular election or one particularly odious candidate. This is about the black vote getting serious about our interests, and this is about us remaining united. We're not going to let anybody drag us into any asinine gender wars or any other sort of divisive tactics, because that's exactly what they would like to see happen. They need to figure out where's the fault lines among the black community now. Sure, we see everybody's all in a tizzy about reparations and such. Okay, so they found something they can all agree on. But there's got to be some kind of line of division. There's got to be some crack in the wall. There's got to be some area or another where we can drive in the thin end of the wedge and try to divide them again. That's what they're searching for right now. They spent years ignoring black men altogether and claiming black men don't even matter politically. And now what they're doing this year, they're peeing their pants about it. They're lying. They know that they're lying. But what they don't know is whether you understand that all of their bravado and all of their bluster are nothing but lies. See, when you're on the inside, you can see all of those stress fractures forming. You can see how the wall of lies has huge cracks in it and that it can crumble. But if the people on the other side of that wall can't see the cracks in it and don't perceive how bad the situation is, then maybe, just maybe, you might buy yourself some time and have a little bit of an opportunity to put some more cement in those cracks, try to spackle it over a little bit, try to pretty it up some, and say, see, we weren't worried for an instant. This is the reason why what we're doing now has to be a permanent posture, not some temporary tactic. This is about us actually making sure that we get on code and stay on code. And we can go ahead and have all of these Democrat retreads, these fossils from a bygone era, get out here and throw the insults and all the rest of it. But you know what? When it comes to disrespectful gestures, it's the person who gets in the last word who usually lands the hardest insult. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Anthony Pollard, Richard Allen Lovell, Black Voltron Reloaded, Devin Goodwin, and Naji95. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.